Good morning, everybody. I usually say happy Friday every time we do a live video. And today I'm going to say happy spring because I don't know about everybody else, but I'm so excited that spring is here. It has been a long, cold, hectic winter, staying at home, cooped up with children. And okay, it is raining today, but the mental thing of spring being here is absolutely amazing. So today what we're going to be discussing is how trauma affects mental health. And I think that this is such a pertinent subject right now. I mean, it's always really important, but we're going to really dig into it. And I've got Charlene. I forgot to ask you if you're going by Charlene Vo or Charlene VO.
Vo. Just
Charlene
a shortening on my surname, which is so lengthy and a mouthful.
Yes, perfect. Okay, great stuff. So everybody, I'm here with Charlene today. She is a well-being coach and counselor. And we're going to dig into this topic. Charlene, if you can tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. Hi, morning. So I'm a wellness counselor with a special interest in trauma and its impacts on our well-being. I'm based in Joburg, and I'm passionate about educating and informing how trauma impacts on our well-being. It's very close to my heart as I was raised in an abusive and dysfunctional household. And I've had my own intense journey in finding my own healing.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And just to let everybody know, I've known Charlene now for 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know.
I think it's around about 16.
Is it? Okay. So I can't remember the exact date, but we actually met kind of through online, through our mental health stuff. And we connected and supported each other. And this is before you became a coach and counselor, I'm sure.
Correct. Yes. Many moons ago.
Yeah. And of course, I haven't had a shortage of mental health difficulties, to put it mildly, being an addict and an alcoholic in recovery and with bipolar. So if anybody wants to get hold of Charlene after this video, you can get her on her website, wellbeingyou.co.za. She is still busy working on it, and maybe I'll give you some tips and tricks on how to get your website like pumping. So, and I forgot one very important thing. Everybody, we are going to do a giveaway at the end of this video. So I'm going to choose a winner, and that person is going to get 3 counseling sessions with Charlene, plus a 250 Rand Takealot voucher. So jump into the comment section, ask questions, give your own experiences, feedback, just get involved, and I will pick somebody at the end of the video. So the first thing I want to get into, Charlene, is what is considered trauma, and are there different types of trauma? And I just want to say that, like, from my, when I think of trauma, I think of something hectic. I think of something like rape or abuse or, being involved in a car accident where people die, going to war, something like that. When I hear trauma, it makes me think of something really big. So can you explain a little bit to us what we mean by trauma when it comes to mental health?
So trauma actually is not so much the event itself, but it's the perceived or real threat that we encounter to our survival, be it emotional, physical, spiritual. So of course, the more violent an event, the more it will have an impact on us. But it can be something so small as someone saying something to you in a group full of people that threatens your social standing, your inclusion, because part of being a human is our integration in a social unit. So it's not so much the actual event, but the perceived threat that it has to us. Sorry, my camera and the angle is weird. I want to face getting a bit distracted there. So it's anything that threatens our well-being. It's a violation of ourselves, our boundaries. So everything you've mentioned, it can be from something extreme to something small that someone else might blow off. But to the individual, it has had some impact in the way they perceive themselves in the safety of their world. And also the trauma is what happens within your body because you go into a fight, flight, freeze. And the trauma, it either ends there or it continues. Your fight, flight, freeze it becomes stuck. So your body, you go into a state of hypervigilance. And so your physiology hasn't calmed down from that event. So your brain continues to monitor your surrounds for what's the next threat.
Okay, perfect. I find that very interesting because, there's a lot of people that, when you share about something that's happened, other people try and minimize it and say, but that's nothing, get over it. Or words can't hurt you. That whole thing of sticks and stones can break your bones, but words cannot harm you. I actually changed that for my children. And I say sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can hurt your heart. Because it does hurt.
Yes.
I think that's a terrible thing.
Absolutely. Because what I want to touch on as well is, and this is not a criticism on anyone personally, but our world, from where we've started as beings to what we are now, there's still a lot of disparity, a lot of inequality. And trauma, abuse, dysfunction, distortion starts in our household. There's no book on parenting, and everyone is evolving. Once you know better, you do better. We certainly hope so. But so just going back to the heart, again, that's an emotional boundary. And the thing is, we all form our identities through what we encounter growing up, as well as school, as religious attendance, all of those things. And identity, the ego, which helps us function in our external world, is sensitive because, again, it goes to that acceptance in our household, in our schooling, in our religious environments. And if someone says something negative about you, we do take that to heart because we want to be perceived as good and fitting in and worthy and lovable. So when someone says something that threatens that, it is a wounding to our psyche. So, and that's also something I want to address is we very much living in a traumatized culture in South Africa. If you take where we came from in apartheid, there's a huge amount of underlying aggression and violence in our culture. And there is it's very much said. It's been said to me, I know of other people that I work with have also just let it go. It's in the past, let it go now. And that more so keeps us even more stuck because you're suppressing and denying your experience. And the power and the strength there is when once someone starts to share their experience, how it made them feel. It's a processing of that event. They feel supported, they feel heard, they feel loved. And that's where the medicine lies with what I do, is supporting people. Because in order to for it to end, you've got to go through it. It's in the words, it's in your expression, it's an allowance, and it's an acceptance of your experience and the effects that it's had on you.
I think that's amazing. And I think also, opening up and talking, I think there's a certain level of shame, or that it's not okay to speak about your trauma and what's happened to you. I think, and a good example is my miscarriage. I had a miscarriage a couple of years back, and it's kind of like you say you've had a miscarriage and everybody's like, nobody knows what to say. And it's almost like you shouldn't be sharing it. But you do, you need to talk about it. And I find it incredibly healing. And I found it when I wrote a blog post about it, I read the comments in tears. It was really, really amazing to hear all the women coming forward with, I had one too. This is what happened to me. And the comments were just flying in, and I'm reading them with tears coming down my face. But it's a shared grief that we have. And I think people that have had a miscarriage often grieve alone. I also wrote a post about that and Baby Yum Yum, they just shared something. I saw it on Instagram. I don't know if they shared it anywhere else. Somebody shared an experience, and Baby Yum Yum quoted what was said. And it was so heart-wrenching. And she also touched on how you grieve alone, because you don't have a funeral, you don't have a coffin, you don't have an urn of ashes, you don't have everybody coming around you like you do in a funeral to grieve your loss. You don't have often anything except for, like I don't even have a positive pregnancy test. I don't have a scanned photo. I didn't even know I was pregnant. So how do you grieve that and get support from the people around you? But talking about it is healing. And part of my healing is my blogging and putting it all out there.
Yeah, and that's an amazing experience that you're sharing with others. Although it's grief for you, you're attracting other people that are feeling the same. And there's unity in that, in the expression, because you can resonate with someone else's pain. And what happens there, it's also validating what you're feeling. I'm not alone. So to find, and you've established that, you've shown that, is by you sharing, you attract other people that say, I feel that too. I feel very similarly. And that's the healing, because in our modern day commercial world, going to school, there's this competitiveness where we put it against each other. And it's not about who you are emotionally. It's not about your emotional health. It's not about what's being put in your emotional bank by your parents, your teachers, your religious influences. So there's this huge competitiveness with this face of how good am I, how perfect I am. And it spreads into the rest of the society, is how we're not, you're not a feeling, emotive being. And so to hide behind this closed door of perfection. But there is a huge movement now to people blogging, sharing their experiences. And by that role model sharing their voice, it allows others and empowers others to come forward with their stories and similar stories. And I think why there's this culture in keeping with the commercial world of, success and the game face is people, we're not conditioned to know how to comfort others. Because interestingly, as humans, and this is part of our survival, we have mirror neurons. So in as much as we verbal, we also read body language amazingly well. And your brain goes to mimic exactly what the other person's feeling. Now, grief isn't pleasant. We all, I think, have the capacity and the want to ignore what's uncomfortable. So when you start sharing, it's like, how do I deal with that? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to make it better. And often that's not even necessary. It is just to hear the other person, is to validate them and honor them where they're at in their journey. And that's a lot of what I do, is listening, being present, creating a safe container for someone to share and just be heard.
Yeah,
so
I think
sorry.
that's quite interesting. You're saying that people aren't comfortable with others' emotions and with grief. And I think that's one way that I've been very blessed spending a year in rehab. Because from morning to night, you sit in group after group after group. And I can tell you, there is no comfortable group therapy. It's all seriously uncomfortable stuff. And you get to sit with it. If you try to brush it off or make a joke and minimize anything, the counselor pounces on you. So everybody has to sit there and really feel it. And there's crying and there's screaming and there's like all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff that comes out. But I think it's really a gift to be able to know how to be able to actually sit in that and not feel that need to make things better.
Absolutely. And that's where the healing medicine is. Because it's humans, we have this entire spectrum, but we only allow the soft, happy, fluffy stuff. And that's cutting ourselves in half. Whereas it's very natural to heal, to grieve, to feel those feelings. Growing up in my own household, if it wasn't anger, it wasn't done. You know, and it was suppressing all of that stuff. And that's the conditioning. You're actually not comfortable with the entire spectrum.
Yeah.
And we've been conditioned in society as don't speak it because you're going to make other people uncomfortable. But the healing is in just being able to be with your feelings and just allow them and accept them. And their validation of yourself and your experience is what's so profoundly a release. And then there's balance that comes in after that.
That's beautiful. And I just also want to pick up on something else you said about influences that are being open and real. And I think there's two different sides to this. I think in one way, a lot of people are speaking out. A lot of celebrities are getting real and sharing their mental health struggles and you know, their real stuff. But there's also the other side of influencers that are on Instagram and are highly Instagrammable. I'm not Instagrammable at all. But it's showing this fake face and this perfect lifestyle and only the beautiful shots of their holiday and beaches and flights and expensive hotels and happiness and loving partners and all of that. But there's also the side of life that is often covered up. So like I say, on the one side, you've got these influencers being real and open and honest. And then you've got the other type of influencer that's kind of glossed over everything. It's all photoshopped, pretty and sparkly. And I think it's important to, I mean, look, I'm not dissing those Instagrammers. You know, they're doing what feels right for them. That's great. That's fantastic. It's great to look great all the time. But also, I think it can be quite damaging to people that are struggling in life and they look to this and think it's all real. And you know, like especially with my kids, they watch all these YouTube videos, hate it, and they check this out. And how many likes have you got? And how many likes have they got? And how popular are they? And how much money do they make? And I think it sets up a really an unrealistic expectation of life.
Yeah, and just going back to that again is just going back to the schooling system. Is how are you in the top 10 of the class?
Yes.
And it's how we're modeled on that the external will bring us happiness. The external will bring us acceptance. And so what I just want to speak quickly to what you're touching on, how influencers position themselves in the market, is what are they selling? There are those influencers that are bringing authenticity and still being able to market their product, which is far more authentic and holistic for the individual versus the other that's steeped in status and the external.
Yeah.
And to me, that speaks of an actual deficit within us, our internal landscape. Because what's within us, we populate, create with externally. So someone that's more grounded and accepting of themselves will show that to the world surrounding them. Whereas people, I feel, that are not in alignment and accepting of themselves, they are going to put on the external trappings of status, the car, the house, the perfect face, because that all states something in perfectionism. And there is nothing like that in real life. It sets up an ideal that is actually very unrealistic. So as long as people realize that is just, it's kind of a game of perfection versus what's very real. Life is messy. Life is chaotic. And this is the thing, working in mental health is we have good and bad days, good and bad moments, strong and weak moments, just different moments that arrive in our lives. No day, no moment. So to have this facade, this picture that is unmoving and just perfect. Well, I think, you know, a lot of people can discern the difference there. But I would say it does really speak to our wounding.
Yeah, 100%.
Because that's a mask of perfection. Whereas if you accept yourself and you know you can make mistakes, you know you don't have to wake up owning one of the most luxurious cars, living in a really high-end market.
Yeah. Perfect. I was just wondering now, if we can go on to the next point that I want to look at. What are the natural responses to trauma? I mean, you spoke about fight or flight, but, you know, so I want to just kind of discern what are the natural responses to trauma and what happens when it goes wrong. So the unnatural, you know, when you're not healing from that trauma and taking the right steps.
Yeah, so so you have immediate reactions, and then you can have delayed emotional reactions. And then it goes from, you know, the immediate reaction to what then can later become a chronic effect of the trauma. So you can have, you know, obviously there's anger, there's irritation, there's sleep disturbances, maybe eating disorders eventually. But the immediate reactions is, you know, shock, trembling. It's either the person becomes very reactive, which is called hyperarousal. There's extremes of emotion, or there's the withdrawn, the shutting down. And then, you know, there's exhaustion, confusion, sadness, anxiety. So emotional dysregulation can occur, where I'm saying intense emotions or not at all. The person shuts down.
Okay.
And then there's...
Yeah, sorry?
Sorry. No, you...
I'm going to carry on. I thought you were finished.
No, sorry, I'm done.
Okay, so what are the ways that trauma will impact your daily life, you know, if you don't have it treated or kind of work through the stuff?
Well, you can have sleep disturbances, nightmares, flashbacks. Like I'm saying, either it can affect your eating, affect your relationships. It pretty much impacts on everything. You know, learning difficulties, focus at work, socially, you're withdrawing, avoidant, resistant. You know, there's even at the extreme of that is suicidal ideation, because the person feels so overwhelmed and they wish to escape, and there are no coping skills at that time, so just to escape from that. Self-blame, feelings of shame that persist.
So this could all be basically classified, you know, if you've had a trauma of any type and you don't treat it, you could get post-traumatic stress disorder. Would that be how it impacts you, and all of those things could be part of post-traumatic stress disorder?
Yes, so post-traumatic stress disorder is like the umbrella, and then it falls in with depression and anxiety, racing thoughts, inability to focus, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, fatigue, your eating disorders, cognition, which is learning difficulties, not being present physically in the moment, depersonalization, feeling unreal, not being able to live in the present moment. You know, your system is stuck in hyperarousal, which is the fight, freeze. That hypervigilance is not actually relaxing. Also, in trauma, narratives and patterns are created. So there's a story playing in your head that then impacts you in your daily life as well, as I'm not safe, I'm not liked, I'm not loved, I'm not supported. Whereas if we calm, from a calm space, breathing, you feel a sense of safety.
Okay, so I'm going to go out here and just say something that's been on my mind for basically the last 2 years, close on, is that I feel that we are all living now with post-traumatic stress disorder to some extent. Because, you know, we are all terrified for our families. I mean, I think even the people with the conspiracy theories that don't believe in the vaccinations, don't believe in the COVID, that it's even real, they are living in stress because they believe that, you know, there's all this like conspiracies coming towards them. So I think absolutely everybody in the world right now, no matter what your beliefs are, everybody's living in this heightened sense of fear and insecurity.
Well, even before the pandemic, we were already living with all of this stress and all of these related happenings in our world. The pandemic is this pressure cooker that we've all been put into, and those cracks are showing more and more, and they're expanding. Because if we just go down to, we're a higher functioning thinking animal than the ecosystem that we're in, and our main aim is to survive. So even when it's someone comes with a different religious opinion or different way of eating, that is a threat to what we identify with. So I'm just giving a very basic example. Is there's a conflict now, just at a very base level of what conflict looks like. And then it becomes a threat to how I need to defend my position and my lifestyle or my choice. And now if we extrapolate that to what's happening in the world with jobs, food, all those pressures. So even looking, we come from, you know, world wars. And no one's really evolved with our emotional states. And now to bring in how survivalistic we actually do feel. So it's finding that grounding and all the healing in that is to express, is how to deal with conflict, is how to love and accept ourselves and others, be tolerant of others, as well as placing healthy boundaries. We can all have our wants and needs until they impact negatively on those around us. So what I'm saying, we are very much in a trauma society, traumatized world. And especially, let's say, the vaccination right now, people feeling if I don't take it, I could die. That's survival. Others feeling if I do take it, I die. It's going to compromise my system in some way. I die. It's all about survival and the perception of what that impact is to the self.
100%. And I think what you're saying now is that, I mean, especially the whole world, but especially South Africa with our apartheid past, with all the inequality and the gender-based violence and the poverty and the everything. I mean, that's just been magnified so much more with this pandemic. It's just made the problems that were already there even worse.
Absolutely, because people that are already being suppressed and under strain are now further being impacted. And so if we just go to a physiological level of that stress, is your breathing becomes shortened when you feel in conflict or further pressured. And then your body goes into fight, flight, freeze mode. Because with the shortness of breath, your heart starts to beat faster. Now the blood is constricted and no longer flows to your prefrontal cortex, where you're higher thinking, you're higher functioning. And that's where you get reactive situations, explosion, anger, because now it's survival, it's fending, it's defending your stance, your territory. And that makes for really volatile reactions. Because often when energy created is what energy gets met with, because we're living in a wounded society.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. And I think what you said now, the physical side, coming through, I think we need to also remember that I feel mental health very physically. It's in my body. In fact, I'll go so far as to say, if I'm feeling sick, if I've got a runny tummy, if I've got a headache, if I've got stress in my shoulders, it's not a physical cause. Normally, I can then go through my day or my week and think what's been going on, what's been happening. And I can actually find that there's an emotional and a mental health issue that's causing that problem for me.
Absolutely. Our minds, bodies are integrated. So what happens, let's say you have the thought, you're worrying about your work situation. You're unemployed, you need money to pay your rent, and it's not happening. And you have the thought, I'm going to be out on the street, I'm worthless, I'm pathetic, I'm useless. And your body responds to that. Your mind cannot discern between reality and fiction, I'm going to say. It's not facts. It's thoughts you're having about yourself. And literally those thoughts will create conflict within yourself. It's an attack on your identity, yourself, your well-being. And chemicals, our bodies respond with chemicals. And that's adrenaline, cortisol, which telling you have to fight and defend. And because there's no real threat and there's no real way of coming down from that, unless you're fortunate you've put in place a routine that helps minimize that, which is exercise, which depletes these chemicals. But they then go down into our blood, through our bloodstream, and start to cause all of those things. Irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pain, fatigue, autoimmune diseases. So I agree with you, because I have had the same, is where you're not feeling mentally. It's literally just say a filter. It starts here with chemicals. They produced all those stress hormones go off into your body. And that's the manifestation, because that also creates inflammation. And inflammation is what then results in whatever you're feeling. Migraines, IBS, all of those things.
Perfect. So what I want to know now, the next thing, and I think this is going to be, it's important to know what trauma is, what stress is, how it impacts you, and all of that. But I think one of the most important things that everybody needs to know is what practical steps can be taken to heal from trauma and improve mental health, especially now during this time.
So I would say a big one is the integration of the mental with the physical. And that's a lot of trauma-affected people. Their nervous system is stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. That's why there's a lot of emphasis on breath work and meditation and yoga these days. Because the breath, which every single one of us has access to, but is so underrated. People go on diets, they go to gym, but your strongest practice is your breath. Because breathing deeply, your heart, your brain, those are the nutrients coursing through your vessels. When we go into shortness of breath, we get very constricted, tense, aching muscles. Whereas when you're breathing deeply for prolonged periods of time, or just taking moments out of your day to focus on your breath and ensure you're breathing deeply, relaxes the body, your arteries, veins open. You go into a state of relaxation. You have better access to your thinking. So those and yoga, tai chi, massage, grounding techniques that bring you into the present, into your body. Because our brains, especially in the world now, there's so much stimulus, so much. What you can read, what you can listen to, what you can watch, friends texting, you texting, just so much information. And our brains and our systems become flooded. So in addition to whatever trauma, whatever mental stress we've already got going on, bodily stress, there's just all of that influx of stimulation. So to find quiet times in your day where you do ground yourself, just sitting in your chair, feeling your butt in the chair, it's a quick mental holiday break where you come out of all of that. And then also very vital, especially if it's severe trauma that's impacting you, is to seek support. It's whether it's a counselor or a therapist or a community group or a church nearby, anything that has positive healing, connecting impacts on us. Spending time with family and friends, connecting in healing ways, and then setting a time aside for hobbies. It's self-care, and it's more than just a bubble bath or a chocolate or a glass of wine. In as much as people do gravitate to, let's just say, alcohol to unwind, maybe a glass, that's fine. But there's also a tendency when we're traumatized and we're not coping with the sensations and the feelings in our bodies, is to self-medicate.
With food and alcohol?
Any kind of substance. It's gambling, sex. I don't like the word addiction so much, because what the addiction actually is an attempt to self-soothe.
Exactly. It's self-soothing gone skiff.
Yeah, it's not the best. It's not a sustainable, positive, impacting way of self-soothing. The addiction is the negative connotation, is that it takes away from you ultimately. It's not sustainable. And traumatized individuals, we are carrying really unpleasant, scary bodily sensations and emotions. And we've not been taught how to deal with those things. So seeking help in finding how to do those things. Because initially they are uncomfortable. Initially they are scary. They're foreign. They're unknown. So it's to find ways. Everyone's different as well. As you'll find a person that uses exercise to help them deal with the emotions and the stress and the negative aspects that they're feeling. Then you have someone who tends towards to go to alcohol or substances, drugs. And in that, your body is already under stress. And now that's additional stress that's compromising it. So already you might have depression and anxiety that'll further exacerbate it.
So it's about finding healthy coping mechanisms and healthy ways to unwind.
Absolutely. And hobbies, things that you really enjoy, that take you out of the stories, out of the narratives, that help ground you in the present moment. If you like painting, seeing the colors, smelling the paint. And it's not just one fits all, and it's not just one activity is going to be the magical elixir. It's often, a whole palette that helps bring in that balance.
I love your suggestions here. And I think one thing that stands out for me is that I think a lot of people think that if you're going to go to a psychiatrist or a counselor or a therapist, they're going to you need meds to help you get through. And I think people get scared. And there's such a stigma surrounding mental health issues. And when you started speaking now, and the first thing you came up was breathing, I promise you, I could visualize my mother watching this video and start cheering. She is so big on breath work and yoga and meditation and grounding yourself. And she really is right. And in fact, I went to my parents' farm at the beginning of just before lockdown happened, the first harsh lockdown. And my mom was there with, you've got to breathe, you've got to calm, you've got to center. It was amazing. But even so, I spent the first, I think, week or two of that lockdown, with the shock of it and everything. I was completely dissociated most of the time, which is where you completely feel like you're outside your body and you're watching a movie. And it was scary and it was very uncomfortable. In fact, even during that state, I did a live video with a counselor friend of mine on, how to cope during the pandemic. And it was so weird. I'm like watching myself doing this live video. Yeah, but I did it anyway, and I think that's what a lot of this is about. It's about just showing up and doing what you need to do.
Absolutely. And I just want to expand on why the breathing works. Is because you're slowing down your heart rate, and your heart is laboring less. And again, your arteries are opening, your body's going into relaxation, your mind is starting to relax, and then you start having access to higher functioning, which is your thinking brain. Because when we're having shortness of breath, we're contracting and we're constricting, and you become less functioning. You're laboring under intense stress. Whereas with breathing, you're undoing all of that. You're expanding, and you have more access to your thoughts, options, the world. You're coming into your well-being. Whereas when we're fighting for our very breath, becoming smaller, becoming more intense, a startled animal running through the dark, and everything is threatening. So the inverse, when you're breathing and you're grounding yourself, you're not in the fear that's in your head, in your body.
Perfect.
And these are very practical things we can do. Yeah. And they're free.
You mentioned exercise. And you mentioned yoga, and you also mentioned exercise. And I'd just like to add that for me, one of the best things I can do is, okay, I'm not really fond of getting out there and like pumping iron and going cardio. That's not really my style. I go on the beach and I have a walk. It doesn't have to be fast or, that does help. But I like getting outside in nature and going for a walk and just getting outside. I find being inside, especially this winter, it's been so miserable inside and cold. But as soon as the sun is out, I like to go outside and I like to walk. I like to hike on the beach, in the mountains. And I think just a bit of sunlight and a bit of outdoor activity is really, really good.
Absolutely. It's imperative. As humans, we tend to think we're a part, we're not included as nature. We're a part of it, separate to it. And it's actually proven scientifically that bird calls are so healing for us, soothing. Oh, so really? Nature, and vitamin D, the sun, absolutely essential to health as well, mood. I'm currently reading a book on neuroplasticity and how healing light is to the body. So you're touching on very key, that's what I want to say, is people need to find what works for them. Don't go and do exercise that you hate. You're already not enjoying your life.
Oh, yeah, no. That's
so start small. Start with the things that you do want to do, that you do enjoy. If it's gardening, that's exercise. Even if you feel you're in your house and you're cleaning, that's still movement. It's about movement.
Once I've cleaned my house, it's just getting to that point where I actually pick the stuff up and start and kind of pushing through. But yeah, the end result is very nice. You're in a clean house, it makes you feel better, you exercise. I really feel good after I've cleaned my house from top to bottom. The amount of times I do it in one go is very, very few. I'll clean a little bit and I leave, and I clean a little bit and I leave it. So I don't get that like really good impact of having done a. Yeah. I don't know if that helps anybody, but yeah, okay.
I've been there, done that, but this is what I say is, and your daily practice is your strongest practice.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it doesn't have to be a marathon each time. It can be a sprint. It's like consistent practices each day give us the most profound benefits. Because part of the neuroplasticity is retraining your brain. Especially if you've been living in that stressed intensity. It doesn't happen immediately that you're It's a gradual retraining of your system, the nervous system, the mind, the way we think. So be it housework or be it therapy, it's little consistent moments that take us to where we want to go, where we need to be.
Beautiful.
Steady wins the race.
I'm just going to add something in here. I've mentioned this in previous videos as well. I did a video with Natasha Kisten from Fit Like Mummy, and she is amazing. And we were chatting, and she said during our live video, she goes, I love therapy. Like, I love it. I just love it. And I love that because people have got such a negative connotation towards therapy. And while it's not, especially in the beginning, a very happy, exciting, pleasant process, I can tell you right now that once you get through that beginning bit and you start seeing what that process can bring about for you. I love therapy, and she loves therapy because it works. And it is actually, if I look back even on my rehab experience, which was rather painful, it's a beautiful process. So there's the stigma around, like, I don't want to tell anyone I'm going to go see a counselor. I don't want anyone to see me walking in here. I really believe that therapy is absolutely amazing. And I speak from personal experience.
I wholeheartedly agree because I mean, people can contact me through my website. There's a lot more to my story. I've also undergone loads of therapy, given the abuse and the dysfunction I had in my own childhood home. And therapy, as you say, in the beginning, it is intensely uncomfortable because it's something we're not used to. In our society, we're not taught to express our emotions, our perceived weaknesses. But it's literally the legacy of what's been handed down to us each generation. And more, the wellness industry is huge now. I feel the stuff that we're dealing with, the wounds we're having to repair, this is information children and people should have had in schooling. Is what is mental health? What is it to love yourself? Boundaries. What's healing? What's self-care? These things should be a prerequisite to our lives, more than how do you use a calculator, Okay, I'm being facetious now. But the absolute things that are so integral to us being healthy human beings are not taught in school. We're taught in school to be competitive because resources are lacking. Religion, it can be very negative about how you're a sinner and you're lacking. You have to be redeemed because you've been so awful. All these messages, and this is where therapy helps. Again, I'm using that, you're constricted, you're hiding because you feel you're so flawed and broken and something is so wrong with you. And in therapy, a trust starts to happen. We can start to unbundle all of that and say to someone, I fear because I did this, or I think these things, that I'm so flawed, defective, bad. And where someone can go, oh, okay, well, it's not the first time I'm hearing this, or whatever reassurance, because the trust comes in the therapy, be it group, in whatever form, paid for or not. Obviously, you want to choose an individual that is compassionate, healing, loving. Don't go and share your vulnerabilities, your fears with someone that doesn't make you feel good. So I agree with you. Therapy at first is foreign. It doesn't feel like a walk in the park or a fun day at the playground. But once you start moving through that, it is a freeing of oneself. And that's where we come into alignment and balance with ourselves.
Sorry, I had a call coming in. It wasn't my courier though, so I cut it off.
Well, my alarm went off and I heard the hoot from the courier, and I've ignored it. So
I'm just going to have to reply here in meeting. Okay, so cool. So we've got over 120 comments, Charlene. People
I'm not seeing them, so I must be missing that part of the.
No, don't panic.
Private chat. I'm stuck in the private chat. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, there's live comments. So I'm going to have a look here. And we've got Sibongile. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Kona Makadi, I am. I hope I pronounced it right. It took an anxiety attack for me to get help. Yeah, that's amazing. I actually had my first experience. I think it was very mild. Also, it's only been in the last, since the pandemic started. But I've had some like anxiety attacks where I feel like I can't breathe and I can't move and everything's kind of crashing down on me. And it's an incredibly scary feeling.
So what I want to say is, I mentioned that umbrella of post-traumatic stress disorder. At the age of 20, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, severely so. And, years later, I finally realized I had post-traumatic stress disorder because my father was extremely abusive. And when you grow up in an abusive household, there's all sorts of dysfunction and distortions of thought and emotion. And that's actually what causes the depression and anxiety. It's when we encounter a stressor that we don't know how to deal with or how to handle that we often go into a state of depression, which is suppressing emotions. The way we often know how to survive is through numbing ourselves. So depression and anxiety is, when I was diagnosed with that, I came to know what a huge stigma it was because apparently I was crazy. But it's often what we grow up with that we see and we remodel and we embody and we take it as this is how the world acts. This is how people act. This is how we relate to each other. But it's actually learned behavior that's been taught to us. And I also just want to go back to medication has its place.
Oh, yes, I'm on medication.
For some, it is profoundly impacting, but the most part, I think of it as a very poor Band-Aid because it seems to, it's put there and it's like, but there's so much work that needs to happen behind the Band-Aid. Is learning better boundaries, communication, learning how to think positively about yourself and others. A huge way of restoring yourself from trauma is coming to learn how to trust yourself more so than anyone else out in the world. Any situation or other person is to know you have the resilience, no matter what comes along, that you continue loving and honoring yourself with self-care and the best. And so it's just going back to our society is built on so many distortions and misconceptions. And this all further impacts and stresses our mental and physical well-being because we're fighting and laboring under these things. Just the pressure for women to be perceived as desirable, beautiful, whereas we're not just accepted for who we are.
Yeah, that's a really important point there, Charlene. And I think maybe when I was speaking earlier, I gave the impression that meds are bad. I don't think meds are bad. I love meds. I have meds every single day. I love them. I went off them for a while. It really didn't suit me. And yeah, so I think meds have definitely got a place and they are really beneficial and helpful under the right circumstances. And I think something I always say to people, there's a lot of people who ask me, should I take meds or go for therapy? I'm like, what are you kidding me? Take both. But if I had a choice between meds or therapy, I would take therapy. Yeah. You're not going to find someone that's got like me with bipolar and addiction and alcoholism. And I've had, so many different things that I've gone through in my life. You can't put someone on meds and say like, here you go, good luck. I'll see you like 2 years' time when you want a new script or whatever. It's not going to work. You have to have meds in conjunction with therapy. You can't just take the meds. It's not going to fix anything. There's a deeper underlying problem, and that needs to be addressed. And maybe at some stage you can go off the meds, maybe not. That'd be in conjunction with a psychiatrist or doctor. But yeah, you need to get you need to get into the stuff of what's making you mentally unhealthy.
Yeah. So I'm certainly not discrediting medication either. There are definite times that someone would need to go onto it, especially when their chemistry has been depleted to the point that their body no longer is producing the serotonin. But what I've seen in the industry is the overprescription of meds. Whereas, and why I'm very hesitant about medication is the side effects that others encounter. I've been on meds myself, and it's a give and take situation. But the strongest remedy and medicine there is working on the internal systems. When the meds are prescribed, it's because your system, your chemistry is now so out of whack. Your body is depleted. Your mind is not making the chemicals you need in order to physically function. And if you can do it without it, because to come off of these meds, they often mimic the very same symptoms that you went onto them for. So medication long-term, is that sustainable? Whereas if you're actually making the changes, and I'm talking, because the main thing with the medication is your system is in overdrive now. There's that hypervigilance, your nervous system is in overdrive, and now the medication kind of comes along and it subdues it. But it's in the breath work, it's the grounding that will naturally start to take all of that down and restore balance in the chemistry. So medication is what I'm saying is ideally it's a short-term intervention. And as you work on all the other stuff, the body does come into alignment, and then that's something that you could wean off gradually. But all of this is done with your healthcare professionals, your experts. Yes, absolutely.
Perfect. I've got a lovely comment here about music. Sandra, she listens to music because it's therapeutic. And I really love that. And I think that's another thing you can do. You can put on your favorite Barbie song and you can dance. It is such a great way to get you pumped up for your day, get you in the right mindset, the right spirits, everything. And I'm sure there's probably studies about how music boosts your mental health.
It's mood enhancing. Because your neurochemistry responds to that stimulus. And if it's upbeat notes, that chemical filters down your body again, the dopamine and the serotonin, all that feel-good stuff. And you naturally want to move. Is a beautiful tip, yes.
Stunning. Thank you, Sandy. We've got Deshni, and she's been trying an app called Insight Timer on the Play Store. It's free. I know it's free because I've got it on my phone. That's why
Me too.
My husband says it's corny as hell, and can I please put my headphones on? But I've got struggles with. I use it specifically for sleeping, and I've got the two. So what Insight Timer is? It's basically a meditation app. So it's a guided meditation. There's sometimes nice little tinkly music, and there's someone speaking you through, and there's different themes. You can get one for positivity. There's even ones for weight loss. And the ones that I specifically use is one to fall asleep to. And there's another one that is specifically created for when you wake up at night to put you back to sleep. So I've got big time sleep issues, and I find it helps me so much.
Yeah, I love the guided meditations, even for 5 or 10 minutes. Because what it does is it just relaxes you out of what stress thoughts you're having. Whatever story that's running is you can take a break and your physiology calms down in that moment. Yeah, they've got a variety of, meditations of length that you can choose. Absolutely lovely practical tip as well.
Yeah, stunning. Thank you, Deshni. We've got Yolandi saying it starts with the kids, teaching them how to handle certain situations where they feel angry and sad, and the tools on what they can do when something happens. I've spoken about this before so many times, and I think, being an addict and an alcoholic, I can kind of look back and see certain things that contributed towards my life going a little bit pear-shaped. And it's amazing how in rehab we were taught that you are allowed to feel angry. There's nothing wrong with feeling angry. So I think Charlene, you said in your household, anger was what you could feel or behave in. That was accepted. But I think very much in society, maybe not in individual households, anger isn't really an accepted feeling. They say you've got to squash your feelings of anger away, or, push it away and not behave in an angry manner. And that kind of, I think, teaches people that anger is a bad emotion. I don't think it's no emotion is bad, but I don't think in particular that one is a bad emotion. Everybody feels angry. It's when you feel violated or when someone's crossed a boundary, you feel angry, and you're perfectly entitled to that feeling. You can't dick someone in the face because you're angry. So it's about feeling the anger, acknowledging you're angry, acknowledging what boundary has been violated, and knowing how to then take that and how you can act appropriately. You can say, I'm angry because you called me stupid, or whatever it is. And you can teach your children how to cope with that and what's an appropriate way.
Absolutely. It's empowering your children to know how they feel and that they're entitled to take action. And by that, I mean an assertive, healthy action where they say, this is my need. So anger, every emotion is valid. It's just not enacting it on others isn't. And it's parents help children regulate what they're feeling and ways in which they can use it to their benefit.
Yeah, completely. I think sad's also a big one. I think often people aren't, with kids, of course, it's easier, but I think with adults, there's almost like a certain time frame you can feel sad, and then people don't want like a Debbie Downer, constantly with them. So people feel like they have got to put a smile on their face, where people say, oh, chin up, just smile. Sometimes you don't want to smile. I've had periods of my time when I felt so down that I just felt like my face would crack if I tried to pull a smile. Like, hello, if I smile now, this is going to crack and break.
Well, emotions are indicators. They're telling us that there's something going on for us. Journaling is another amazing tool someone can use. Is if you're feeling angry or sad, is to go and have a dialogue with yourself, with your parts, as to be curious about, why am I sad? What's adding to that? What I think is going on for me.
Yeah. So I'm leaning forward. I'm looking at a comment and I couldn't see if that was an I or an L because my eyes are getting old. I might need glasses. Sandy, I hope that's how you pronounce it, Sandy. She lost her dad and she was so traumatized she couldn't sleep, eat, and stop going to school and tried taking her own life. And I think suicide is something that, it's so sad, or an attempted suicide. And I think a lot of people say, oh, that person's weak, they're taking the easy way out. I've heard lots of narratives like that, which, it's not like that at all. And maybe you can highlight on that.
And once I've had, when I was in my 20s, I've had my own attempts. And it's just when a person reaches absolute rock bottom, and what they need more than anything, the criticism is not helpful at all. What is needed is compassion and support. It's often when we feel we don't have a safe place to go and express, where we don't have support or love or understanding. And often there's very shameful voice in our head that's telling us, you know, who would help you? You're pathetic. But these are distortions when we're at our weakest, and I don't even like the word weakest. It's just a different state, and everyone hurts. And it's the compassion and the love that makes the difference. It's very easy for someone to say, oh, you're selfish and you're weak. Are you doing anything beneficial to that person? You know, just to say, I hear and I see your pain. I hear you struggling. How can I help you? How can I help you, even if it's just in this moment? And it's, again, it's a stigma that's been perpetuated that you must be crazy or you're weak. No. You're an individual who's in pain because losing a loved one who's been there as a rock, an anchor in your life is hugely transformative. I had the same thing with my mother. You know, we had enmeshment, which happens in codependent families. And I also thought my world is ending with her. And it's a transformative period where you've got to grieve. Grieving is so natural. But in our society, again, it's not something that's easily allowed to be expressed. So it's finding community, it's finding support, it's finding the people that can love you and support you while you go through what you're going through. So it's having discussions and dialogues like this, people sharing all these amazing comments is what brings the healing, what brings the allowance and the validation of our experiences. So I think you have an amazing community going on here. I just love all the sharing.
Yeah, this is like a group therapy, sort of online, live.
Absolutely.
We got fortunate, and I absolutely love this. She says we're always living in the future in our mindsets. We don't want to enjoy the present, and breathing helps be aware of the present the way that she sees it. So I've always got this thing of, I used to live in a mindset of I'll be happy when I get a car. I'll be happy when I get a new job. I'll be happy when I make some more money. I'll be happy when this happens. And you know what? As soon as I've got that one thing I've been working so hard for, that's going to make my life so amazing, fantastic, and make me so happy, I've got 5 more things I need.
Exactly, yes.
And you are never, or I'll speak for myself here, I was never feeling completely happy. And this is where the journaling comes in that Charlene mentioned. I love journaling. I've actually got a whole post on journaling for mental health. I've got like all my journals. I've got one for different, I've got more, some in my handbag in case I need to journal while I'm out. So I've got loads of them. And one of the big things I do for my mental health, and I think everybody should do this, is to write gratitude lists. It's when you stop thinking about what you need, what you don't have, what you're striving for, what things you should have in your life, what you need to achieve. And you look at it and you say, this is what I have now. I've got this, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. It brings you into the present and you actually say, yeah, I've got so much and I'm so grateful. And then you can start being happy now. So thank you, Fortunate, for bringing that up. That I think that is such an important thing that people need to learn to do.
Yes, gratitude is amazing, as well as all the other practices that people are bringing in, because I said it, your daily practice is your strongest practice, because what you repeat strengthens the neurons in your head. So if you're focused on positive energy, positive thoughts, music that invigorates and makes you happy, gratitude lists, volunteering, whatever, every action that you take strengthens a network in your head. And so when someone is depressed initially, it takes the time to strengthen that and move away from those emotions and those feelings. It's literally like building Lego blocks one on top of the other. You move in little increments to where you go. So all these practices are amazing. Is grounding in the present, because we are living in stories in our heads, narratives in our heads. which are created in trauma. It's a survival to tell you to stay safe. Look this way, be that, do this. And when I have this, I'll be this, etc. Such common human conditioning. But with practice, we can build in differences in our lives, the lives we want.
Perfect. And we've got Yolanda here talking about kids getting angry. And I know my son, he starts having such temper tantrums at the moment. It's so cute. He gets so angry. And that's fine. I just try and teach him, hitting your sister with a stick, not so cool. Smacking on the face, not so cool. Throwing your stuff, breaking it, not so lacquer. Take a stick outside, beat the crap out of the tree. Dude, that's great. Scream while you do it. It's about showing them that there's certain ways you can behave and there's other ways you can't behave, but your feeling is fun. And I think one thing that I'm also experiencing now with my son is that there's still such a stigma around boys mustn't cry, boys must be strong, boys must not show emotion. And I'm like, why? Why can't they just, I sit and cry sometimes. In fact, I do it quite often. But I find it healing. And I find that I feel better afterwards, and I see absolutely no problem with crying. And I think it's about teaching our children, exactly like Charlene said, that every feeling is valid. It's what you do with it.
Yeah, and if I can suggest, especially children, helping them to identify what they're feeling and what their emotions are. So creating an alignment is if they're having a temper tantrum with fists, and if they're able to articulate, help them to breathe and calm down, and then get them to tell you what they're feeling in their body, what they're thinking, and help them process through. So you're feeling this, you're frustrated, you're angry. What do you want to happen? Like, what is the end result for them? Help them find that and how they can go about achieving that. Says, I'm feeling angry. Where are you feeling it? My chest, my shoulders, my stomach's burning. Help them name all of that stuff, as well as what they're thinking in their head, and to process that. Because as parents, as an adult, we help children come to how to regulate their emotions and their feelings and their thoughts.
Fantastic. And I think, just to add on to that, a fantastic tool, and and this is for anything with kids, is books. Having books, you can teach them anything through a book. And I'm a total bookworm. I was brought up that way. And there's some amazing books that are out now. I don't have them, they're downstairs. But when it comes to feelings, I think it's Alligator is Angry. I've got that book, and I've got Squirrel is Sad. So I've got a whole range of books that, for each emotion. So, when they're going through something like this, you can show them the book, or maybe they're going to throw it because they're so angry. But, at bedtime, you can think, okay, so he had a bit of a temper tantrum today. Let's read this book today at bedtime, because we read every night at bed. And you can incorporate that into your daily routine. So whatever your child is struggling with at that particular time, if it's bullying, if it's, there's everything. when your child starts getting to teens, you can start, sliding books on, menstruation and whatever it is that you're going through with your kids. Books are amazing.
Absolutely.
Let's see. Oh, you smoke a lot when you're stressed. Melody, I quit smoking, what was it now, 6 years ago? I think 6 years ago, coming up 6 or 7. I don't know, 7, I think, 6. Anyway, but I totally get that. I loved smoking. I probably shouldn't say that.
So this is, if I can just provide some education and information as to, I smoked as well, but have quit for 10 years now, and I'm happily so, is smoking has the nicotine and other chemicals in it, which release dopamine. So your brain is receiving a reward, and it's a calming down. But the irony on the other side of that, it is putting stress on your body, because smoking, your heart's having to beat harder to process all those chemicals through your stream. Your lungs are laboring. So it's a double-edged sword. And the smoking is the self-soothing. So if you can, and if you want to quit or you want to reduce it, is to find other habits that bring in the same amount of self-soothing for you. And initially, it might not feel the same, but again, with practice, with the repetition, it'll become more comfortable for you to use a different habit, a means of soothing yourself. Yeah, so it's completely understandable, but not your best choice. So, but yeah. And change takes time, small moments, you know. It took me a couple of attempts to quit. And all I said to myself is, well, now I've found what doesn't work for me. And you quit once you don't give up on quitting. That makes sense.
Yeah, I did it in one go, and I should have put something else in there first instead of quitting smoking, and then I took up eating. Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's the small changes in habits that you don't go from one thing to fall into the next. But trial and error, this is human nature. Life is chaotic and messy. We learn through trial and error. So yes, finding what works for you.
But I I haven't smoked in 6 years, but I do eat donuts. I do think it's an improvement. You know,
absolutely.
It's a journey, and I have to work on my food a bit.
But I'm sure you don't eat donuts as often as you used to smoke, so it's still a win. There you go.
Definitely not. Deshni says, yeah, it's too much to hear, see, too much to listen to on social media, the news, the WhatsApp messages. No, there's so many. Yeah, so I think that's it. You know, there's so much stuff coming in all the time, and that's stress in itself. I've actually gone through my phone, and I have taken off on my phone almost all the notifications for almost every single app, only the most essential ones that I use. And some of them I only turn the notifications on for a small period of time when I know that I'm waiting on something important, for example. And the rest of it I turn off. And I also have my phone on a, I don't know what that thing is, a wind down or a quiet period or something, so that at a certain time at night, no notifications come through, no phone calls come through, nothing until the morning at a certain time, then everything comes through. And for me, that has been absolutely vital. It's been so important for me to kind of stay calm and relaxed.
It's essential to have these practices, because just going back to all the stimulus, and we're so conditioned to achieve and do the next thing, attain the next thing, have the next thing, you know, keep abreast of all the news and social and fashion and all of that stuff. And it's just, your brain starts to become noisy. And so your energy, and you become exhausted, you're depleted. And there's this lovely little meme I came across the other day, you know, dough in a bowl, and it said, in order to rise, you must rest.
Beautiful.
Because a lot of people, we underestimate how vital rest is to being able to perform and function. So taking these quiet moments out in your day to breathe, to have go and walk around in the garden and just breathe, put the phone down, whatever, is just completely go into a calm moment where you just unplug for a while, because that restores you.
My daughter has come up with this thing that she loves now. She's got this new thing she loves doing, and it's fact finding. She loves these weird, obscure facts. Now, I think she gets on YouTube, and I don't know how true all of these facts are, so just take note. But she told me yesterday that she said, you will die faster from lack of sleep than you will from lack of food. That's her fact. So, yeah, don't believe it until you've researched it and checked it, because it comes from my 9-year-old daughter from YouTube. But that's what she said to me, and I found that very interesting. I never would have thought that.
Look, it's fairly possible because sleep, again, there's certain criteria. There's always ask what the criteria of the study is.
Yes.
Sleep is immensely important because our brains go through a period of restoration when we're sleeping. There's rapid eye movement. There's different stages in our sleep. And the quality of your sleep is also really profound because what happens is that also affects the chemicals that our brains release. Sleep is very important to regulating mood, even eating. It's proven study that people that go to sleep after are far more inclined go to sleep after 12 are far more inclined to snack eat and stuff like that. And it's got to do with all chemistry, So sleep regulates a lot of our bodily functions and systems. Because the less you sleep, the more manic you become. And your system actually speeds up. It's not a state of rest. So I can well believe it. It's possible. It just depends on the very specific criteria that they're applying.
I'm grinning at this comment I've just read. Evening rage cleaning. Any married woman knows what a rage clean is. I don't know what you mean, Deshni, but I've had a rage clean.
I suggest slowing it down. Breathe. Still clean, but yes, breathe.
I like that as to your frustration. Yeah, I don't feel particularly rested after rage clean either. So
add the breathing in.
Sibongile goes, exercising is an antidepressant. And I think it's 100%, exercise is absolutely fantastic. I think it's better than an antidepressant as well. I mean, I'm not a doctor, quote me.
Coming back to it is we are an organic bag of chemicals and soup. So when you go and exercise, your body's releasing endorphins, serotonin, all the feel-good stuff. So, it's the byproducts of the exercise that creates the well-being.
Yeah. We've got Deshni again saying it's expensive to see a counselor for specialist for counseling. It can be very expensive. I would like to just take note that if you are on medical aid, there is a thing of a discovery where you can actually get counseling through your hospital plan. It's under the same, I can't remember what the benefit's called. But yeah, I've got a benefit where I can go into a clinic or rehab for 21 days each year if I need it. And through that same thing, I can also apply to have, I think it's 30 or something sessions a year through my medical aid. But also there are plenty of free resources. I know you can go, I think SADAG does free counseling. I don't know if you can add to that list.
Yeah, well, if anyone wants, they must please go to my website and just drop me an email because there are free resources that I can direct them to by referral. But yeah, you also find therapists, myself including, that work on a scaling system of fees. If the individual just approach someone and have the discussion about, what's within their means, but also like you've just said, SADAC has great resources. Also, churches often in your community have counselors that are based there. But I would suggest SADAC. They often know, nationwide of support groups and counselors.
Yeah, perfect. We've got Melanie that wants to do a live breathing exercise with us one day. I'll talk to Charlene. Possibly we can do that.
Absolutely. We can actually set that session up and I can go through several. Yeah, why don't we do that? Actual practical. In addition to this, I can bring in other practical examples that we can work through in a session.
Cool.
I love that, Melanie. Thank you.
Yeah, now we breathing and a walk helps more than you can imagine. Oh, definitely. I mean, for me, going on a morning walk on the mountain or on the beach, it just starts my day off right. And Dashmika says she can't believe half of our issues can be solved just by breathing. My mom is also adamant that breathing is the way to go. And a lot of people are like, but I breathe. If I'm not breathing, I'm going to die. But it's breath work is very important.
Because it recalibrates your system. Like I said, when we're in intense stress, you're bundled up like that. When you breathe, you start expanding. You have access to your thinking brain. Your body relaxes.
Yeah. We've got Nilu 4. How do you pronounce that? I can't get it right.
Nilufar, I think. Nilufar. I apologize if I'm not getting it right.
Yeah. Says that we need to remember that our bodies are like a vehicle. If we don't take care of it, it won't function like a car without petrol. But what I'd like to add onto that analogy is that you drive your car properly. You don't slam on the brakes. You don't leave it outside with the door open so the rain can get inside. You go and you service it regularly, whether there's a problem with your car or not. So, make sure that you're doing, even if you're feeling great, don't stop your daily practices. Don't completely stop your therapy. Have a check-in once a year or whatever it is, but keep maintaining and looking after your car, even when it's running perfectly.
Absolutely, yes.
Let's see what else we got. Sandra. I call her Sandy because she's Sandy on all my other social networks. Okay. So I'm not changing her name without permission. She's usually as Sandy, but today she's Sandra. Me time, putting yourself and your mental health first. I've actually been on quite a self-care journey this year. Where it's always been on my list to do self-care, but it's more like, I haven't had self-care for a few days. Let me have a bubble bath or shave my legs or do something for myself. But this year, I've really actually started getting into it. And I've started taking time off work. I've started working less. I've started having more bubble baths during the day while the kids are at school. And I always used to feel so guilty. But suddenly, I've started really enjoying it. And it's like, bugger that, I deserve this. I deserve to have a nice, quiet bubble bath while the kids are at school so nobody comes and poops next to my head. I deserve to take time off work, because why do you work for yourself if you never take time off work to go away or go for a walk or have a coffee with a friend or something like that? And I can't believe how guilty I always used to feel about being nice to myself.
But those are vital. They're vital because they're periods of restoration. They restore you to yourself and bring you back with energy.
Yeah, I've got a tradition now. After every live video, before I fetch my kids, I shut everything down. Sorry, I won't reply to all your comments yet because I'm going to go have a bubble bath, fetch my kids, go play for a bit, and I'll catch up with everybody probably tomorrow. I always used to do my live video and then go into the comments and work, and go check with everybody. I'm sorry, guys, just give me 24 hours and I'll be back. Let me see. Tatenda does yoga and meditation, and you can detach yourself from the present stressful moment. Yeah, I love that. Meditation and yoga. I love yoga. I just feel it's exercise, but it's mental health exercise as well, and breathing.
So that's one thing I agree with, is absolutely being able to take yourself out of the moment. But another technique is grounding, is where you actually bring yourself to yourself in the very moment and realize whatever that stress is also part of a story that's running in your head. Whereas you separate from that moment by just feeling your butt in the chair. So if you have the time to go into a meditative state with imagery, whatever it is, but if you're also very stressed in the moment, is sitting in the chair, is naming 3 colors you can see, is taking 5 breaths. It's just coming out of the mind and just literally being in the body.
Perfect. I've got Deshni now wanting to know what is the name of the book. That was at 9:45. So I don't know which book we were talking about. I don't know if it was the book Charlene was mentioning or if it was the kids' books. So Deshni, just inbox me on Facebook and tell me which book it is that you were interested in.
Yeah.
What was the theme of it, and then I'll get that information to you as soon as possible. We've got Sandy again. Steps to heal from trauma. I think one can accept support from close loved ones or professional. Yeah, 100%. And I really have to stress what Charlene said. You know, you can open up and bare your soul, which is fantastic. To the wrong person, devastating, absolutely devastating. Make sure that the people you are sharing your stuff with are on the same level as you, you know, that can support you. There's nothing worse than opening up to the wrong person and getting that crush of, yeah, I mean, that's trauma in itself.
Yes, and we don't need someone telling us how to live our lives or what we need to do. Because even in coaching and counseling, that is not someone, the professional never does that to a person, is the help and the support, the compassion and the care, because every person knows what they want and need the most. No one can ever dictate that to you. So I just want people to bear that in mind, because you are your own medicine. You know what's best for you. It's just having the support and guidance sometimes.
I love the suggestion from Fortunate. Playing with the kids also helps. Play, pretend, and listen to how they see the world. This is something, you know, sometimes when I get so stressed out and I've got so much work and the kids are hucking on and I'm like, I just say, you know what? Shut down. Let's go outside. Let's get an ice cream, get the Lego or whatever it is, and let's build a house in the garden. Because, you know, it just, I don't know. I can't explain it. But moms, I'm sure you've done it before. To just let go and go do something fun with your kids. It really is therapy as well. And trust me, if you're having a bad day with your kids, that's the best way to solve it. They will just be so happy that you've put down your work or put down your housework and just gone to go play with them.
Absolutely. Playfulness is integral to mental health, just being fun and silly. Because adults, we've been conditioned, the world is such a serious place, and it's the survival aspects that bog us down. So that's really beautiful. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Melanie's given a tip here as well. There's an app called Fabulous, which I've never heard of before, which is helping her with daily action. So you get reminders to do chores, breathing, exercises, everything. And that sounds fantastic. I'm going to have a look. Thank you for adding that. Let's see here. Yeah, Melanie, if she could afford therapy, she'd be going every single day. Yeah, get hold of SADAG and see what they can offer.
And also get in touch with me, Melanie, through my website, and let's just see what the issues are that you're feeling you're wanting to address, because I do know of another free resource. So if there's anything specifically, because a high trauma impacts intensity in, you know, chronic trauma, the way it impacts someone, to say someone that's just in maintenance, affects people differently. So, you know, that's a more intensive therapy that's one requires. So just, yeah, get in touch and let's see what it is you're wanting to work on.
Yeah, I think also what's important, and this is obviously not for someone that's dealing with a highly traumatic event that's fresh or new to therapy, but for someone like me that's been in rehab. I was in rehab 13 years ago, and I've been in counseling on and off, and I've met a lot of people in recovery. But, you know, for someone that's maintaining mental health, is to, as you go along your life and you meet new people, kind of add them to your support network. So I've got my group of people, my little bubble, that I know if I'm going through this, I can contact this friend and just say, listen, this has just happened. So I've got a number of people. It's a mishmash. Some people are in recovery. Some people are sex addicts. Some people are codependent. Some people are bipolar. Some people have depression. But we're in a group where we know we can always contact each other. And so that's not therapy, but it is having a safe place where I can go and vomit out my stuff and I can just leave it there. And I know someone's heard it, someone that understands. Sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't, but it's a nice sort of a thing to have. So maybe think about that along your journey so you can start building that. Let me see here. Yeah, Dashmika loves your idea that, teaching children about mental health and that should be taught in life orientation. I totally agree. And Nilufar also says that in the school curriculum. Totally.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. No, when people say therapy, I'm not crazy. I totally get that as well. I've had so many people that I've recommended they go and they come and they say, I've got this problem. And I say, you really should go to therapy. They're like, I'm not crazy. I'm like, you're not crazy, but you have a problem. And it goes back to the thing about the car and the servicing of the car. Your brain, you go to the dentist every 6 months and have them check your teeth, don't you? So, what's wrong with doing the same with your brain?
But it's a big misconception people have. And what comes out of our mouths is the world we live in. We project it out there. So very tongue-in-cheek, I'm saying they probably fear they are crazy and don't want to expose that. So
yeah.
It is just, there's nothing crazy about exploring who you are and the things, because we all have this. In practice, in seeing this, in speaking to everyone, we all have similar fears, thoughts, feelings. So if it's crazy, it's a human crazy. There's not one of us that doesn't have some kind of fear or experience in our past that has wounded us.
I think, okay, so we've got loads of comments now. I actually lost where I was. So I'm running blind here, so I'm just going to pick up from wherever I can. And also, we're going to be running out of time soon. But I just wanted to say that, when I do have a moment, I'm going to come back and I'm going to respond to all of the, the comments and the questions and chat to you guys as soon as I can. And I'll also go through everything when I do my post that I write on this. I just wanted to, I'm just going to skim through and just find a couple that we can hit on before we leave. Ingrid is struggling to forgive and forget. I think the important thing here, and I mean, you haven't given any background on what it is, but as a recovering alcoholic and addict that has been 15 years in active addiction, wrecking my own life and damaging myself, and coming into contact with people that were incredibly bad for me, abuse of all types, and being in horrible situations where people have done horrible things to me, often because I put myself there in that situation as well. So it's been very a mixed bag of stuff. I can just say that forgiveness is not for the other person. It's never for the other person. You need to forgive yourself, you need to forgive them, and it's all for you. It's all for you to move forward. You're not going to be able to move forward until you forgive. And you don't have to forget. It's not about forgetting. It's about forgiving, and it's about moving forward with your life. You never have to forget anything that's happened to you.
If I could just add to that, forgiving and forgetting is a process. And also there's been this movement of you have to forgive, you don't. As you've said, it is about your healing and your journey. My father was very abusive, and I'm still and won't get to the forgiveness stage. What I do have is understanding of what happened and why things like that happened, because it goes in cycles. The abused are wounded and they end up perpetuating the cycle. So it carries on. And forgiveness is for yourself. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and your process takes as long as it does. And once you've processed it, time, it becomes softer, it becomes less relevant in your life. But that's because you've dealt with it.
Perfect. We've got Natasha. Her husband committed suicide recently, and she's cut people out of her life that don't contribute positively. So firstly, Natasha, I'm so sorry for your loss. That must have been absolutely devastating for you.
Absolutely.
And just on the side of cutting people out of your life, some people look at it, oh, you can't cut these people out, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know what? There's nobody in your life more important than yourself. And if people are not contributing positively and they are negatively impacting you, no matter who they are, if they don't have the ability to change or respect you enough to change or to, contribute positively, I personally don't see anything wrong with being brutal and cutting all those people out.
Yeah, having healthy boundaries at this stage, I'm tremendously sorry for your loss, Natasha. That is incredibly devastating. And especially at this time, you need to do what's best for you and your self-care. And boundaries are profoundly impacting on our lives. And the fact that you're doing it in such a stressful time speaks to huge strength. Because that's a wonderful awareness to have.
Definitely. I mean, I think so. I started cutting, not actively cutting people out, but I just started a couple of years ago. As an addict, there's always drama in my life. There's always something that, the sky is falling and you kind of thrive on the drama and you live on it. And as I got into my recovery process, in early recovery, I was used to the drama. And as my mental health started improving and things got calmer, I started feeling uncomfortable with drama. And people, you don't cut everybody out of your life when you get clean. And you don't realize that some of them are not that healthy to be around. And it's taken a long time, but I've slowly started moving away from drama and towards healthy people, positive people that build me up, that we can support each other. And the change has been amazing. I think it's fantastic to cut negative people out. I think it's a beautiful process. If I had known how great it was, I would have done it earlier.
It's called making better choices for yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. Ooh, Sandy says we're doing a great job. Yay, thank you. I really love doing these live videos. It's so much fun. And Deshni says this group chat was awesome. Yeah, it's been really, really good. But you guys are chatting too much. I can't keep up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lynn, and your community.
Oh, I've got one more from Deshni.
Welcoming me.
That I have to get to. And this is one that comes up so often in our live videos. You can't pour from an empty cup. And sometimes when I'm struggling, and I talk to my mum, because when I struggle, that's the first person I phone. Mommy! We don't change, do we? Because we take on so much. And my mum always says to me, look after yourself first. And I'm like, but my family, but my kids, but my this. And she said, who's going to look after them if you crash and burn because you haven't looked after yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, people. You have to look after yourself first. If you don't look after yourself first, you're not going to be able to look after your kids. And it's so tempting to put our everything into our children, our gorgeous little creatures. But we have to actually fill our cup first. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself first. You have to do it, for your own mental health, for your own sanity, and for your children. Put them first by putting yourself first. So thank you very much, Deshni, for that reminder. That is very important.
Absolutely. When you're flying on the airplane, they're like, before you put on anyone else's mask, put on yours first.
100%. You have to do that. Awesome. I think we're going to have to stop it over there because I've got to go have that bubble bath. Sorry.
Priority self-care. You've got it going on.
I'm putting myself first. I'm pouring into my own cup. I have to. It's a Friday. I need to pour in my own cup before I go fetch my kids from school because I've got to get through the weekend till Monday till I can have another bubble bath on my own.
You have fun, Lynn.
Yeah, because not even when they're sleeping is it safe. They wake up when I'm in the bath to come poo next to my head. That's what I want for my next birthday, a bathroom block.
Oh,
Anyway, Charlene, thank you so much. This has been so much fun for a number of reasons. It's a great topic. It's a great discussion. You've added so much value, but also because you are a friend of mine. We haven't really connected much for the last few years, so it's been absolutely amazing. It's like a blast from the past.
Thank you. I've also had a great time, and I love your community, and I love you, and I'm keen. Let me know. Let's set up some practical exercises to help de-stress. Yeah,
that sounds absolutely fantastic. I'm going to add it to my list.
And you take care.
Wait, I've got to choose a winner.
Sorry. I don't know how this works.
I'm going to go for Destiny, Melissa, Kirsten. Is it Kirsten? I can't read my writing when I write really badly, but you know who you are. So pop me an inbox and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you're not watching still, that's fine. I'll come and find you. But yeah, if you don't find me, I'll find you tomorrow after I've had my bath and played with my kids and stuff like that. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. I hope that there will be some sun so you can get outside, get walking on the beach, get some sunlight, some vitamin D. Awesome. Thank you.
Love you guys. Ciao.
Bye.